Reddit is one of the more exciting social media companies and certainly one of the fastest growing social media companies in the stock market right now. Of course, if you've been following my channel, you know I like the social media business model. I've liked companies like Pinterest, Snap, Meta platforms, etc. because I like the idea of user-generated content for a business model, right? Reddit doesn't create this content. It doesn't pay to have the content in the message boards created. It just provides the community and lets people communicate, and Reddit makes advertising revenue as more people engage with the platform more often. So, is the stock a buy? Even though I like the business model, is there risks that are hiding? Is the valuation too expensive? I'm going to address all those concerns as well as all of the losses on the bottom line for Reddit to determine if I think investors should buy this interesting social media growth stock. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now. So one of the more important metrics I look at when I'm evaluating a social media company is user metrics. How many users they have and how quickly is it growing? And for Reddit, it's growing really, really well. The total daily active users as of the end of the third quarter were 97.2 million. But most impressively is the increase in the United States, where from the previous quarter, the second quarter to the third quarter, they added 2.7 million daily active users. This is much better than Snap and Pinterest, as they've had difficulty growing daily active users in the United States. Also better than Meta platforms, which has also been flat in this metric. The United States is a saturated market for social media users. It's difficult to generate growth since most people have already tried all of the social media platforms. There aren't very many new customers to attract. Reddit has found a way to attract more. It's growing in this metric. It's one of the smaller social media companies of all of those that I mentioned earlier of Snap, of Pinterest, Meta platforms. Previously, we used to get data on Twitter. Now that Elon Musk purchased Twitter, we no longer get the data for their user metrics. But when I was getting data, they were much larger than Reddit as well. But Reddit is growing faster. And that's the exciting part about Reddit's business is that it's still in that fast growing mode, whereas the other social media companies, they've slowed down considerably. And you can see that also in the company's quarterly revenue growth numbers. Reddit increased revenue by 56% in the latest quarter, and its revenue growth has been accelerating for 4 consecutive quarters now after decreasing in late 2022. Of course, this is when the economic reopening gained momentum and people were spending more time outside, less time on social media, and also advertisers were pulling back spending because they were afraid that a recession was about to happen because the Federal Reserve increased interest rates so rapidly. So since those fears and those changes in consumer behavior were put behind them, they found a way to accelerate growth. And this is much faster than, all those social media companies I highlighted earlier. None of them grew revenue by over 20% in the latest quarter. In fact, of all the large companies that depend on advertising revenue, including Amazon, Alphabet, which also those two companies generate significant sums of revenue from advertising, they grew their revenue less than 20%. Snapchat, Pinterest as well, less than 20%. And so for Reddit to grow revenue by over 55% demonstrates that they are gaining significant market share, not only in terms of user growth, but also in revenue growth. Now, one area where they are struggling is in profitability on the bottom line. The operating profit margin over negative 54% and no clear signs of improvement in this metric. I usually don't mind when companies are losing money on the bottom line as long as they're demonstrating progress towards profitability. Reddit is not doing that. Their operating profit margin is negative and fluctuating, volatile, but no real improvement. This is the one downside, the one risk for this company right now is in the profitability profile and the lack of progress on this front. However, if you look at the Wall Street analysts that are following Reddit stock, they think the company is going to turn things around in terms of profitability starting in fiscal year 2025. They think the company is going to generate 55 cents in earnings per share in 2025, GAAP EPS in 2025, and it's only going to rise from there to $1.39 in 2026, to $2.49 in 2027, and $3.80 in 2028, a rapidly increasing earnings per share forecast for Reddit over the next several years. And that's understandable if you think about the company's revenue growth, if you think about its user growth, and you think about the fact that it's operating in the advertising industry, which the total addressable market worldwide is roughly $1 trillion gets spent in advertising worldwide. This is one of my favorite markets because I don't think advertising will ever go anywhere. I think advertising will continue increasing throughout human like in the foreseeable future without ever changing, unless of course it all of a sudden becomes illegal. Worldwide governments decide to make it illegal or some drastic thing like that. Advertising will continue increasing. Businesses need to advertise in order to generate sales because the bulk of the purchases that we all make are things that we see or things that we're exposed to that we buy, right? If there was no advertising, worldwide sales would fall by I don't know how much, but a huge magnitude because people won't be pushed to purchase anymore. And so without that push, people will not purchase as much. And so advertising, I'm really attracted to this industry. You've probably seen that already with all of those ad supported companies that I have rated as a buy. Even though the company's not profitable on the bottom line, Reddit is generating good cash flow from operations to sales at over 10%. This is the more important metric to me because if you're generating positive cash flow from operations, that means you don't need to go to investors to ask for money. That means you don't need to borrow money and you're in a financially stable position. And that's what's more important to me. You can continue losing money on the bottom line. If your cash flow from operations are strong, I'm okay with that. And you might be asking, well, how can that be? How can they generate positive cash flow and negative profit? And it's based primarily because for Reddit on stock-based compensation. The company pays its people in significant sums of stock-based compensation, which is a non-cash expense, but it still generates cash flow. And you can see that trend improving nicely over the last couple of years of data that we have. Of course, we don't have long periods of data with Reddit being it a newer publicly traded company, 10% solid for Reddit. Looking at the valuation, the stock is not cheap. It's trading at a forward price to earnings of 61, closer to 62. If I were to show you a chart of all of those other social media companies like Snap, Pinterest, Meta Platforms, even Alphabet, those are trading at roughly half the valuation of Reddit, perhaps even lower for some of them. So Reddit is the premium priced company in this group. But I think it's deserved that premium valuation. If you look at the company's earnings per share forecast, the growth in cash flow from operations, the improvement in revenue growth, the acceleration of revenue growth. You've heard me talk about how important that second derivative is. The rate of increase is increasing, and the company is attracting user growth from the United States, which generate the highest average revenue per user. So all that being said, if I was to answer, do I think Reddit stock is a hold, buy, or a sell? I think Reddit stock is a buy. So I think investors can buy Reddit stock at current valuations. Hey everyone, I'm excited to announce that my book is finally available for sale. I've been working on it for more than a year now, so I'm really excited to finally share this with you now. It goes through my framework for evaluating stocks. Some of you often ask why I like this stock or why I like the other stock, and this framework provides you the things that I look at when I'm evaluating stocks. I've added the link in the description below.